to Aware. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. Are you interested in a peaceful planet? Are you interested in optimal health? Are you living with purpose? Are you enjoying your life? We realize each person can make a difference, and our mission is to empower your awareness. The choices that you make in every moment shape your life, and we encourage you to realize that you have your own answers and to always listen to your own truth. We invite you to stay aware. Hello and welcome to The Aware Show. I am Lisa Garr, and it's such a joy to be here with you today because we get to talk about information that inspires your positive growth and change in whatever direction that is, but making sure it's positive. I always like to say that because there is negative growth as well, and we've all been through that. So making the intention of positive growth is something that I always say on this show. And also, if there's something that you love that you hear, always share it on our podcast. That's where you can listen on demand to The Aware Show. You just type in The Aware Show on the podcast or the website, theawareshow.com. So have you ever been in maybe a support group, something that was maybe a grief support or 12-step program or some type of community or support group around your specific interest or topic? What about the idea of a financial support group, a level of financial support amongst colleagues or friends or peers, not a financial advisor, there's plenty of that out there, but a group that actually talks about that taboo subject of money? We're more likely to talk about sex than we are to talk about money. So joining me today are two incredible financial flow facilitators who have done just this. They're passionate about supporting people to live their authentic lives at the root of their financial freedom. Fascinating concept. Joining me is Cynthia Schwartzberg. She is the senior Brainspotting trainer. We're going to find out what that is, a consultant and practitioner. And also is Beth Medina. These have both been therapists for many decades, and they now run a beautiful organization, or I should say support community around financial flow. They are both Brainspotting consultants and professional practitioners and therapists, and I'm just very happy to have them both here joining me today. Welcome, Cynthia. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I have to ask you, why financial flow? Let me just get to the root of where that started. I'll ask you, Beth, to start.
So Cynthia and I have been colleagues for quite some time. We met through the Brainspotting community, and we started the Southeast Brainspotting Institute together, which is a 501c3. And we found that we worked really, really well together. We have a nice flow. Cynthia has a term that she likes to call when we work together. It's both play and work, so she calls it plurking. And I know, isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? So when, of course, when we started the organization, it was, a lot of energy put in to get it up and running. But several years ago, we were able to roll off of the board, and it has grown since its inception to this incredible organization that's able to not just to share Brainspotting across the Southeast, but also to offer opportunities for therapists who work in areas that maybe won't get Brainspotting training. In order to, they can access some funds from Southeast Brainspotting Institute to enroll in our fellowship program and learn Brainspotting with the support of colleagues and train Brainspotting therapists together.
We have to talk about what that is. What is Brainspotting, Cynthia?
Well, it's a method of working with people that therapists are trained in traditionally based on where you look affects how you feel. That's the motto that we go by. Because when we're thinking about an issue and our eyes are looking in a certain direction, it will get deep into our brain, all the way back into like what we call our subcortical brain, to be able to reorganize and rework pressing issues that we haven't been able to get to before. So it's a powerful method of using our eyes, our bodies, and our brains.
So it's your focus, it's your gaze that helps
you realize where in the brain is accessing the memory, and then you can actually shift
Well,
that?
well, actually, it's where you have an issue. So if we take example the word money. So if I have a reaction to the word money, so where do I feel that reaction in my body? I feel it like across my chest.
Mm-hmm.
So I will find an eye position that connects to that sensation. And then I will be able to stay gazed at that spot. But it's the connecting with the issue, the body, and the eyes that helps get the access.
Got it. Okay. And Beth, you were going to further explain this through, I see you have.
Oh, yeah, I was going
I
to.
have a
We
very
love visuals.
colorful brain. So, the brain is very complex. But did you know that 80% of the brain is actually dedicated to the vision? It's very, very interesting. So, what we've discovered over time with the advent of neuroscience being really, really big is that, of course, we use our entire brain. We're just not aware of using it. On the outside of the brain, especially in the front part of the brain here, this is where we think and do math, and this is the place where we rationalize everything, right? But there are some parts in the brain that are much, much deeper and much more powerful. So thankfully, we have these parts of the brain, or else we wouldn't survive the night because we'd forget to breathe. There are many automatic processes. And what we know is that when something that's overwhelming happens to us, our brain can't quite process it all. And so it actually gets locked and kind of stuck, both in the brain and located in different places in the body. So if you picture it like this, let's say that you're walking in the woods, it's a beautiful day, and you hear something in the bushes, right on the left-hand side. If we were to watch you in slow motion, we'd see this happen. We'd see your eyes do like this, look down into your left, and then your head would turn. Now, if it's a bunny rabbit, you might kind of lean in, right? But if it's a rattlesnake, you have two choices, right? You're going to either run or beat it with a stick. If you don't have a stick and you can't run, you're going to freeze. And if it comes at you and tries to bite you, you're probably going to collapse. This is called the orienting response and the defensive response. And it actually helps to keep us and other mammals safe. But when we experience things in life as humans, when we have close calls, we just sort of, go, oh, that was weird, and move on. But what ends up happening is, as I said before, it gets locked in the system. So Brainspotting is a great way of unlocking all of this, but especially issues with money.
Interesting. So we could go into the fight or flight and fear and freeze around money.
Absolutely.
Who hasn't experienced that? Losing money, or something costs too much money, or you make a big purchase, or there's so much associated with our survival and money.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We need it to survive.
And especially if you lose it, or it's stolen or something, it affects you physically. And it is one of those things that it is a means to an end. So can you talk a little bit about that? Why is money so ingrained in our survival?
Well, it's linked to survival, right? So we have to have money. At least most societies have to have money in order to attain certain goods. And so it's linked to our ability to eat, our ability to have a roof over our heads.
Right.
And of course, as we go up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we get, and as we get advertised to with all of the things that we are sold all the time, we tend to believe that, I have to have certain things in order to belong and that sort of thing. So that's how things can kind of get messed up in our heads. At least one of the ways.
Can I just add one point to that? So yes. If we go back to the brain and where things are stored, many things are stored in the cells of our body and in our memory, and it can be generational. So culture, generation, and the way I was brought up and the things that I learned just got in the ethers of me that I can't get to if I am having a conversation with you. I may not know why I have that tension. For example, like before I was talking about that tension in my chest.
It's fascinating about it being generational. Because I have heard that your money problems started from maybe 2 to 3 or 4 generations prior to you without you even knowing those relatives.
Right.
Mhm.
Because it's in the cells of the brain,
Mhm.
unconsciously, right?
Yes, and it's also in the tradition of the way the family um, habits and behaviors function.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so take someone who has, a lot of our parents came out of the Great Depression.
Yes.
And prior to that, there's, a horrible poverty that existed in so many areas of this country and other countries that were immigrated in from. So,
Mhm.
would it be fair to say that most of us have a scarcity DNA? Oh,
Yes.
that's terrifying. Yeah,
Yes.
Well, but we can get over it.
that's why we're
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But
It-
yes, I mean, especially so ancestral, generational. You were going to comment on that, Cynthia?
Well, I was just going to say that it's like I was commenting with my head because of what you were talking about of this generational from the Great Depression and that survival instinct, and then how I was brought up, or how you or Beth were brought up, that carries through the way your parents saved for you, the way they gave you money or didn't give you money. It all infuses that type of behavior, which
And
then we carry forward to our children.
and that's what you call the money story, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes.
I don't know if you can comment on that, Beth, the stories that we develop in, say, this lifetime. It's
Mhm.
super important to know or recognize our money story. We've lived it, but we may not
Yes.
just call it out, right?
Mhm. Well, sometimes we're not even really aware of where our money issues come from. We may be aware that yes, like my mother was the daughter of two parents who were depression parents, and her father was also very sick, and so there was that dynamic. So she got really, really good at doing with less and making it work, hand me downs, and that sort of thing, right? And so she learned at a very early age that you please always save because you never ever know what's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And my dad is a self-made man, and of course I come along and I'm the second child, and so as many second children who also just like to live life by the seat of their pants. As a little kid, I was that kid that would get a dollar as a present and want to go spend it, right?
Yes, yes.
And so my mother was always saying to me, you need to save your money, to save your money. And for her, it literally was like, we might not eat this week, right? If you don't save your money. For me, hearing that we got to save our money, looking around and thinking, well, we have everything that we need. I developed a different understanding of what she meant. It wasn't that she was saying, you're incompetent. She was saying, be careful with money. But what I ended up hearing was, there's something wrong with me.
Mm.
So I don't know how to save money. And so that belief that I had as a little kid carried over into my adult life until I had to start unlearning some of these things.
Yes. And specifically around females, there is,
Yes.
and I'm sure Cynthia and Beth, you've both learned that this is an issue for female survival because women were not traditionally the breadwinners of a household. And I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, it was much more moms were staying at home. A few moms maybe worked outside of the house, but that was not the norm.
Right.
And life has changed so that women have helped that happen, but then my generation gets very stressed because I have to keep managing the house, and then I also have to go out and add to the support of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But
And
and I
children, you add children in there and all of that, where the traditional role of a woman was to bear and raise the children.
right.
And then modern day technologies came in. And of course, there's a lot that has to do with that around the history of women. But it is not only in the last over 50 years that women now are, breadwinners. And it is definitely something that we have that DNA, as you mentioned, in our cerebral cortex that says no, stay, nest, raise.
Right.
And it doesn't say raise money, it says raise children. The DNA does. So,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been it's been an incredible journey that women have had to go through over the last 70 years, 75 years to be and have a seat at the table. It every time I do it, I can't even, it viscerally lights up. And when I pull into a board meeting or any type of business organization or any meeting, and I'm the only woman, my DNA says, hello, you're the only female here.
Right. Yeah. And when it comes to money, historically, men have earned more than women. And I think it's part of this, we have to kind of deprogram ourselves to stop accepting less. And so, especially if you are a big-hearted professional woman out there who owns her own business, it's really important to get this money stuff right
Yes.
and to find your place so that you can continue to do the work that you're doing and still take care of your own self and your own, psychological needs, your own physical needs, your own spiritual needs, all of it.
Yes. Yes. And then especially if you have any type of like other ethnicity that we see
Yeah.
statistically, African American and Latinos typically make much, much, much less. And we just saw this incredible, I was so proud of them. The US Women's Soccer Federation just won in the Supreme Court for equal pay of men and women. Do you know how long they've had to battle that? And just all they could do was fight their fight, but it was such an amazing win for female athletes, and to be paid equally because they're working just as hard, they're fighting just as hard. And it was wonderful to see something like that. But it does take courage, and it takes a long time, and it takes a huge organization and something high profile to do that in. So let's talk about some of the solutions, because I'm big on solutions on the show. You have a program that has a 5-step proven method for creating financial flow in your life. And if we could talk about some of those steps, I'll start with you, Cynthia. Give me one of the steps of the 5-step method, your favorite.
So, my favorite is really hard because the steps are so holistic and they're so interconnected. So my first thought was, oh, then giving. But really, I think that when we start out with the securing and really looking at how am I earning money, and how, what we were just talking about, we were talking about getting paid less over a long time as women. And do I need to continue to stay that way? What have I bought into? And when we look at those beliefs and really challenge ourselves, what we're finding is that people are discovering like multi-streams of ways of making money that they never even thought of before by unleashing these false beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a passion in the class to watch people shift it and then discover their potential.
Mm-hmm.
It's really an endless potential we have, right?
Mm. Yes,
Right.
yes, because we're looking at the DNA that we're actually learning to redo. And that's why you have programs like this. Beth, what is one of your favorite 5 steps methods?
Well, it's interesting because when I started doing this work, probably about 5 years ago with clients and their money, of course, my focus was a lot like other people's focus. Let's get you earning more money because that always solves it. No, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because what ends up happening is there's something called income creep, where, okay, so we're earning more money, but we're spending more money, right? And so I started looking at, well, okay, we can't just be doing one area. We really have to look at what we're doing with the money that we're earning, the extra money that we're earning. And so I love that we are looking first. Yes, you have to earn more money first, or it helps to earn more money first. But then we're going to look at how you're spending the money, but also how you're saving the money. So we earn more and then we save it. It's that old adage, pay yourself first. I'm not the only person on the planet who used to think this, I'm pretty sure, but when I first heard that was like, what, do you pay yourself first and go shopping, or what? How does that work? What do you mean? Right?
Right.
It actually means pay your future self first, right?
Ah,
So when we earn money, we can take a certain percentage and pay our future self first into either a savings account for emergency funds when we have enough in that. Then we look at longer term things and investing, but we don't go to investing right off the bat, because for a person who's got money issues, first of all, money is something that brings on a lot of shame, because either I don't have enough of it, I've squandered it, I have too much of it, and other people are suffering out there. There's all of this stuff that happens around it. So we start off by helping people work through all of the stuff with earning and all the stuff underneath. And then we work through the stuff with saving. So regrets about not having saved enough and all of that stuff. And so when they work through that, then we're able to look at the spending, and the shame continues to lessen. So we can look at, okay, do you have debt? Great. Let's talk about what plan you're going to, to use to fix that. And we help them uncover the possibilities and to really get curious about their spending. And they're not doing this alone. That's another really important part of this, that whenever we're looking at something we don't want to look at, like we can put it off and put it off and put it off. But if we're all in the same kind of miserable pit, kind of looking at the same
mhm.
issues, right?
So great.
It's
Yes.
wonderful. It's like, oh yeah, like you have debt too, great. Like, but we can encourage each other, right? And so I don't know. I really love that, looking at saving it. Again, because a lot of times people have an issue with having more than others, especially women who are big hearted. They give and give and give. And then, especially if they've had some success in their lives, they want to share with people that they love. And unfortunately, sometimes it ends up being just, an economic kind of handout, instead of it being a hand or a leg up. And so we want people to learn how to stand on their own and create their own financial abundance, so they can be a beacon of light to other people and inspire them, because we all have the ability, even if we don't believe it deep in
Yes.
us.
No, and I mentioned that at the very beginning of the show about the support groups, because if you've ever been in a support group, it helps so much to know you're not alone,
Yes.
and that other people are struggling with those things that you wouldn't mention, or that you're the only one that you think are going through. And when it gets out into the open, it takes the energy and the suppression off of it and allows it to flow with solutions. Spending mindfully is a really good, I'm going to mention just the 5 steps. It's securing money. We talked about safeguarding money. There's a difference there, which I would love to know. Spending mindfully, sowing for future harvesting, and sharing the wealth from a place of abundance. And so this whole idea about spending mindfully, I want to go into real quick about the amount we are marketed to, that we are not enough unless we buy this product, take this drug, do this thing. And it is one thing to know it, but on the other side, there's not only the marketing, but it's your friend that got the new purse or the new out, whatever, the car, house thing. And you look at that and you say, oh no, I'm not enough unless I do that. And so the consumerism is buying into the comparison issues. And then there's the opposite movement where there's less is more, the minimalistic movement. And that also becomes a comparison. So how are we okay with where we actually are?
Well,
Right.
Lisa, one thing that we approach in the class when we're looking at this is what's driving my spending.
Great.
So we look at all these different habits, but if I'm looking at that habit, let's go to comparing what you're talking about, is then I have to look a little bit deeper into, well, why do I need that? What's the value in it? Why do I need that? Does that really match my internal personal value system and my priorities of how I want to live my life? Or am I, blindly on automatic pilot going for the ads or going for the conversation that my friend keeps talking to me, or somebody's judging me and putting me down? It's like, if I do the work that we do in the class, and we talked about brain spotting before, So just want to add this piece.
Great.
Is that we do in this process, in this sharing group, it's not only the sharing and the revealing that opens the door, but we do another step. And that other step is doing work together, like group process on a brain spot. And we help the participants frame what exactly is it that's most pressing that will help open up that flow. So I have like whatever that restriction is or that habit is, and how do I want to move it forward? Okay. How do I want to be able to shift? So I'm going to get support from you, and you can tell me all you want. But if we go back to the brain, this part of my brain can't process what you just told me. And somebody else can't tell me that information. It's got to come from me. So one gift that we do in Brainspotting is we trust the innate wisdom of the person to heal themselves.
That's interesting. So take, for example, you're out shopping with friends, with girlfriends, and we know that that rises the chemical oxytocin and the bonding chemical of women.
Yes.
How do you use Brainspotting to look at that as a simple bonding experience rather than a purchasing experience? Or anything that you're doing, yeah.
Right. So when you're out with your friends and you're purchasing, how does that feel? What did you notice? What are you feeling right now as you're talking about it? Because it is important to work in the here and now too, so that we can really get deep down into what's the most pressing for each person. Is going to be different. Like I was shopping with you and maybe I was feeling the oxytocin, but maybe I also got scared because you, in my head, you're better than me, or whatever that little internal story is. But going with the idea that I left that and I felt good. It wasn't about the buying. It was about being with my friends.
Right.
So when you think about that, then you can pair an I position with that. And, like whether you look, I'm thinking about that and looking here, I can really feel it. Versus when I look over here, I don't feel it as much.
So interesting. It's associated with the eyes.
I know, because as Beth was talking about before, we scan our environment for safety. And sometimes my eyes, because they take in so much information and it gets processed in our brains to all our different senses, they will sometimes go to a place to recall the process, to recall that moment as if it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. They call it Scan Pass, like an Etch-a-Sketch that's going to like recreate that scene in my head. So here I am and I'm thinking about it and like I can feel it and see it and attune to it over here. And then we let that grow and see where that goes.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's just a great tool to be able to access a part of your brain that you are not even aware is lit up. And that active place in the brain that's unconscious completely to most is what's driving the behaviors. And why you come back and say, I don't know what you have buyer's remorse, or I don't know why I'm so in fear of paying my rent. And then it leads to more of those same feelings. Being afraid to pay your rent leads to more scarcity and more devastation around money. And you're not moving in the right direction. You're moving down the rabbit hole. Yeah. So catching yourself and changing the direction into what jobs might be available right now? What opportunities could I take as a side hustle? Or is there something that I should look at differently with my, other than the spending conversation? Let's talk about the generating wealth conversation. And then also, of course, the place of generosity around it and donations and, being generous around your money as well. So how do you switch from that survivalistic place of money to something that allows you to be in the income generating conversation or the wealth abundance type of conversation?
So I just want to start, but Beth can talk to this too. But what we were talking about before is it's like a peeling down as we're going through this process. So it's a peeling away layers, maybe you would want to say. So once I've gotten through a lot of like my belief system, my attitudes, my behaviors, I can open up to these very challenging conversations, because I may not know about a financial planner. I may not feel like, I might, from our earlier conversation, I might think that men do that, women don't do that, whatever that is. Then I can dive deeper into getting some education and getting the group support to help me make those steps.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And some of it really is about, you know, getting a good vision of what you want your life to be. I mean, first of all, in my opinion, any really good financial planner, that's how they're going to start. They're going to say, okay, now you tell me, you know, tell me about your life now. Tell me how you want to change things. Tell me in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you know, do you have an idea of would you like to stop working at some point? Like, what does that look like? They're not going to say off the bat, you need X number of dollars to retire. They don't know, you know, because we all spend money differently and we prioritize different things. So first of all, we can use brain spotting to help open up that vision, because sometimes people have never thought that they'll be able to get out of debt. They have never thought that they'll be able to actually, you know, have a retirement at some point, right? Once we've moved some of the possibilities into focus, then we can really start to look at how can we expand that. Now, many people have had traumatic incidences around financial advisors. You know, we've either had our money, lost by somebody that wasn't sure what they were doing, or maybe we had a friend or parent or somebody who invested with Bernie Madoff,
Or what about the stock market crashing these
right?
last, so many people have
Yes.
lost so much money of their 401ks.
Right,
It's
right, exactly. And so of course, everyone, not everyone, but we were so risk averse that the tendency is to want to pull out. And that's not what financial advisors will tell you is the most prudent thing to do. So it's managing the anxiety, but it's
right.
also learning how to speak up for yourself and say, I don't understand what that means. Explain that to me.
Great
Because
point.
sometimes there's all of this jargon that people throw out. And if you are not a person who is really comfortable in that arena, it's very easy just to either stay quiet or not to invest at all. And we know that with how interest rates are increasing and inflation is skyrocketing, we can't just leave our nest egg under the mattress or in the checking account or savings account making no money, right? We have to find ways of investing and diversifying our investments that
It,
so that we can grow our wealth. Yes.
it's an interesting experience, especially in this country. My mother, who is in the retirement age or post-retirement age, she had that to rely on, and it's half of what it was there, 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So it's very difficult for those who are now retiring on that to
Yes.
wait 10 more years. I mean, that's not going to happen. And then with the idea of the rising costs of senior care these days,
Yes.
it becomes extremely daunting. So how do you look at something like that, where you have a daunting situation looking and you don't see a way out?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I do think that that's where you start. You start with that thought, I don't see a way out.
Okay.
And that would probably relate way back to some feelings of being trapped and stuck. And it could go back to be in the birth canal and stuck. We don't know where it's going to go in our brain and our body. But through the process, as that clears, then, we're talking about that subcortical brain, but there's also the neocortical. So once that clears, our thinking comes back on board and the creative solutions and options start to open up. And so as we clear it, those options open.
It's
and
fascinating.
And
go ahead, Beth.
I was just going to say, as we're holding space, as the group is holding space for one another, and as in between groups, the members work with one another, it's amazing how far we go when we have the emotional support of even one person.
That is so great. And by the way, you can check this out. Their website is financialflow.co. It's co, right?
Yes.
And you can check out about the support groups and the courses and everything that they teach around money blocks and financial flow. And my question for you was, Do you remember these stories that you hear about during the Depression where you have the some of the greatest inventions came out of the last Depression? You know, Hewlett Packard started the fax machine, and you hear all about all these things that then led to the internet. You know, there really had a lot of creation is kind of the, you know, necessity of invention, right? Crisis.
Yes.
And you get to the place where the new ideas do start to flow in. And as you said, it's either crisis or it's a support group or it's some type of conditioning that gives you the impetus to say, okay, well, we need to come up with a different conversation here and a different way to create this money conversation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Not a direct question, but I was wondering if you had any comments on that. And I'll start with you, Cynthia.
So I do think that we're about to like probably go for another leap. Like as you were talking, I was thinking about when I was younger, there was this World's Fair, and the biggest fun exhibit that you saw was the AT&T exhibit with these huge screens, and you could watch people and you could talk to people, and it was like amazing. Now it's like in my pocket, right? So I'm also watching the children that are growing up. And my friend works in a school, and these children at like 4 years old are learning about programming. It's incredible.
Right.
And so I'm watching my like grandchildren that they know how to move that tablet. They come to me to ask me to do something. It's like, why don't you show me? Like,
Right.
I don't. So I'm excited to see the technology that will come after it. And we're also looking at that, like if you think about the cars, more and more electric cars. And so evolution naturally has a rhythm and a flow. And if we step back and see a larger picture to society, I think that also can ease some of our fears.
Such an important conversation about the larger picture of society is how do we get through this chronic running on empty stress of working 5 jobs and constantly trying to make ends meet, and what does that do to the health of society in general, and caring for the unhoused and caring for our, you know, elderly population, all of it it can, you know, God bless the people that run for office because they take this on. We have a new mayor in Los Angeles, and I was so impressed with the way, right when she started to go into office, there was this horrible situation with Tyree Nichols, and she was addressing the police force in Los Angeles, which as mayor, you are both in their best interest and also protecting the community. She was right in the middle of this argument. She handled it so beautifully, and I really loved her inclusive observation of being on the ground with both the police force and the people that are being misused, you know, through the different departments and the force that have gone rogue. And I found that there are solutions if you can just stay in the center of the heartbeat of it and really listen to the people. And you are dealing with people every day who have these types of financial heartbreaks and flow problems. What's the biggest thing that you hear? And primarily you work with women. And I'll start with you, Beth. What's the biggest challenge and hardship you hear? And then follow it up with the biggest breakthrough that you hear from women.
Oh, wow. I think that we commonly see women who are really money avoidant. Like they don't want to know. They don't want to know what's in their checking account. They don't want to know. I mean, they need to know how things work in their business, but like they just spend money and hope it works out because they feel so overwhelmed. It feels very daunting. I mean, one thing that I hear among colleagues is, you know, I'm a therapist because I don't do math very well. No, you know, we don't need to do math really well. Calculators can do that, right? It's this feeling of not being comfortable growing wealth sometimes because sometimes the people that we work with have grown up with that belief that people who have money take advantage of people who don't. So sometimes it's unwinding that sort of thing. But I think that the biggest breakthroughs really come when a person is able to get out of the muck and start opening up to their own possibilities. And as they hear other women talking, they inspire one another. and then they come up with solutions to problems that they never even thought were possible. And I know
I'd
some
love to
people.
know some of those solutions. I mean, money avoidant is a key for women, absolute key.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
really, we're not
Mhm.
taught much about financial abundance at all in college or school or wherever, no matter
Right.
if you're male or female.
Mhm.
Money
Well,
avoidance.
one thing that we do in brain spotting is we call it out. Okay, it's money avoidance, and this is a very common issue. And instead of running from it, instead of shaming yourself over it, we're just going to lean into it. Like, what
Mhm.
comes up for you when you think about when you get that bank statement in the mail, or you're about to log on to your bank account, right? Or you get that text message that says that you're overdrawn, like whatever it is, like what's coming up emotionally for you,
Yes.
and being able to process that to really get to the root of it. Sometimes there are people that grow up in families where it's not okay to earn more than dad earned. So,
Right.
there's that unspoken rule, it's not okay to do better than somebody else. So when we're able to get to the root of that, it's about like not wanting to be cut from the fold. I don't want to lose my family. So if I out earn them, or if I have money, then, or if I have money, the government will take it. I mean, we had clients from all
Right.
over. So it's those fears of if I acknowledge that the money is there, what can happen to me? Somebody could take advantage of me,
Yes.
so on and so
Yes.
forth. Yeah.
And before I ask you, Cynthia, there's this whole thing about debt. I mean, we're raised in a country that debt is the very foundation of our country. And it is based on debt. And we will never, ever, ever get out of debt in this country. Human beings are given credit cards at very young ages to go into what? Debt. And that debt will last with them throughout their lifetime and get passed on to their next generation. And it is a principle of life. And
Mm.
so,
Unless they take our course, they
for
don't have
some,
to.
for some, yes,
So,
because you can live debt free.
You
Yeah.
can.
and actually, you asked for like, what are some of the big outcomes? Somebody did come out of the course being debt free,
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
and other
Yeah.
people expanded their income way beyond their expectation. So I talked
How?
about through the process. So, if I really am on an I position in that brain spot, what happens? So I wanted to clarify this with people. First of all, with the program, I do a self-spotting class, and we give that class to everybody so they can learn how to do this.
Great.
So when you're on that spot, your brain will fire things, memories come back, thoughts or words come, or you have these body sensations. So you're getting re-regulated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just makes a difference. So if you think about the part of our brain that, if you think of something really hard, you keep seeing it. So if I've gotten cleared and I'm thinking, well, it's possible to earn money somehow, I don't know how, then maybe I'm going to meet somebody and have a conversation. And this has happened to our classmates. That opens up a whole new money stream of income that I did not know before.
Right.
Right.
Or if you're in a salaried position and you've got a 9 to 5 job and there's hiring freezes and no one's hiring, how do you then open up to a possibility beyond that?
There's a lot of creative ways to make money. I mean, I know that our world is in like a very bumpy time right now, but I do think that if I go back to priorities and our values, if my priority, my value is I don't want to be in debt, I don't want to have strings attached to somebody or some organization, and I want to feel free and live freely, then I'm going to make different choices.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, I speak from experience. I've been in this position before where I lived with very, very minimal amount of money, and every single thing I created around money was either loss or debt
Right.
or being paid less or doing things for free. And I had to make a conscious choice that I was done suffering and never wanted to do that again. And I didn't change anything other than my mindset.
Right.
Mhm.
But that part of your brain that will then start to bring in and attract. So it's like if I want to see yellow cars, I'm going to start to see yellow cars.
Right.
So if I decide that I don't want to live that way anymore, you hit that bottom and it's like, I'm not doing that. Everything got aligned.
Yes, it took a crisis though. It took a massive crisis.
Right.
I think I had I was robbed, and it was that moment, and it was a lot of money, and it was like,
No.
it was a very physically extremely jarring experience, very shocking
Yeah.
to my
Yeah.
system. And
Oh,
I looked at how I attracted that and all the things or decisions I had done up to that point that left that opening for that person to come into my psychic
Mhm.
awareness in order to rob me. And I took responsibility for it, although could have totally gone into victim.
right. And I think
I
that's the gift.
I spent a while in victim.
Right. Like,
I did.
but you did the deep dive into yourself. I mean, that's partially why we have this as a 10-week program, because it does take time for these
Yes.
shifts to happen. And we also, support people with a journal and the class, and then they pair up and they work together. So that's like being really held tight so
That is
that,
so interesting.
when
Yes.
you learn something new, like when I became a social worker, I was in advertising and PR before that. It's like I went and got a some secretarial job in the field that was familiar until my friend said, "Get out of here and go do what you're meant to do." God bless her. So
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because I had not recalled that memory for a very long time, other than this conversation. And I can see how this really works, that we all have that money story. We all have that money story. I was raised around a mom that always says we didn't have enough, but then new things would appear all the time. So it was very confusing to my brother and I about money. And
Right.
and my mom still kind of lives like that. And so I then had that experience, that traumatic experience around money, and then had to eventually decide, no more, not going to do that any longer. So having this energy move by talking about it with two very skilled professionals that have this incredible technique that is new to me, brain spotting, I had not heard of before. It's a really beautiful technique that works. It's a process you have to go through with a guided therapist, a specific way you look, and then you switch your gaze, and then you reimagine something, and then you switch that gaze again. And it's a good, 20-minute process. And I don't think we have time to do it on the air here because it's a very intimate and deep process, but it's something that has a large body of work around, and has for a long time, and has institutes all over the country, one of which you created. And it was the original work of I've forgotten the general.
Dr. David Grand.
Right, right. So it has a wonderful body of work. So I think that combining this great therapy technique with this support idea technique of, speaking, and women love that. We love that. And this is for men too, I'm sure. Right?
Right. Yeah.
It's just that conversation tends to happen more around women being financially illiterate in some cases, which is fine to admit. And then how do you move into that conversation though around unlimited abundance? Sometimes I see these seminars and like, have financial freedom, and you have negative money in your bank account. How do you
Right. Yeah.
create that? That's a disservice, I think, to people.
Right. You have to be
Yeah.
okay with it because, the research has shown that if we're not okay with it, we will part with money. Think about people who win the lottery. Within 8 years, they're usually broke, you
Right.
know. And Dr. Brad Klontz, who's a researcher, says that the reason behind that is that we all live in our own little financial neighborhood in which we're comfortable. And when we're forced out of that, we get so uncomfortable, either because we don't fit in, or we don't understand how things work, or we've had this skewed, idea about what money can do for us, that we end up parting with it. And so you have to, it'd be great if we could all just say, "Yay, let's shift our mindset and get abundant." But if you're not going to clean out that stuff, it's kind of like, we have to clean out our refrigerator before we put more food in there. And if we don't do that, we're going to have a mess on our hands. It's unpleasant, but we have to do it, right? It's much more fun when we do it with a team of people. So that's really what we're about.
Yeah. And one thing to add to what Beth is saying is that in that process, the process of learning to receive. So I think as driving force, big-hearted women, it's like we're plowing ahead and we're filled with passion, which is sort of charging our engines to keep going. So we may not really be mindful of what's happening with our financial bank accounts. And we just don't know how to do this.
Mm.
Right.
So
And that's why we have sharing our wealth at the very end, because so much of the time we see women that just give, either they give services for free or they keep giving to family or charity and all of that, which is wonderful. But if you're not giving from a place of abundance, you're doing a service to yourself and others.
Well, that comes around
so
your own
learn to-
value. How do you increase your level of value?
yes,
I set this
that's
as an
different.
intention for myself one year, was to increase my own self value. And when I set that as an intention, I had no idea how to do it. But I also know that whenever you look in a certain direction, you will find more of the same. So I just started looking around. How do people have such incredible high self value, and who are they being, and what are they doing, and where do they live? And like, can I go see them?
Right.
Can I stand next to them so I can find out how to have self value?
And then Lisa, I suspect for you that you saw that rippling effect. So that, and that's what we see in our class, is that this infuses people's relationships. It infuses the way they do everything, because how I relate to money is how I'm going to relate to most of life, right?
Right. Yeah. One of the most beautiful things that I've seen come out of this class was somebody really realize on a deep level, it's not just about the money. It's really about taking really good care of myself so that I can be the best person I can be for those I serve and for those I love. And when she got that, it was like this light went off, and all of a sudden, everything started shifting in a really positive way. And there was no more trying to excuse or feel bad about asking for money. Her rates went up. Her amount of time at work went down. She started taking some vacation time for herself, some recharge time. And it really, her spirit is just so beautiful. And it was so great to see that come out through the work that she did.
I have a friend who's a personal trainer, and she drives like 30 minutes each way to the group that she trains in the gym that she trains in. And that's her choice. I mean, she lives in a certain area where her kids go to school. And she had a really hard time when the gas prices increased, asking these women who have been clients for a very long time to increase what they pay her. And she went ahead and did it. And she basically asked each person to increase by $5. It wasn't a lot on the other side, but it was also considerable for her, and the difference that it made helped with the gas, and then also to value herself more. She offered an incredible service to these women by going to their homes and helping them have the convenience of working out. And $5 extra, they didn't say much about. One or two said, yeah, that's a struggle for me. And then she worked with those two, but the rest of them were okay with it. And she had a great lesson there on she struggled with this for a long time, but she had to balance out the increase of the gas price and the amount of time that she was spending. And then she actually got even more clients because of it. So she took a big step up in what she was valuing herself as, and it made her life even better. It was a great, great lesson. And I'm really glad she shared that with me. So it is possible. And we do see it happening a lot, where there's actual price gouging going on with everything. I mean, have you seen hotel prices? I mean, it's really kind of crazy what's going on, the backlash after COVID. And I get that companies are trying to make up, but we see it with the airline industries all the time. One of them starts charging for luggage. They all start charging for luggage because they can.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So rabbit hole, sorry.
No, but the two words that came to me about your friend and about what we do in the class is shame and guilt. So the shame that I carry to ask for what I need, when I'm so like a big-hearted woman is often a very independent and strong person. Right. So I neglect or forget my own needs. And then the guilt that if, goes like, how can I ask? I feel guilty, which may be connected to that shame, but it's what am I really guilty for? And we don't see large corporations. I don't really not.
I feel guilty about charging you for luggage. No, they don't.
Right.
Absolutely don't. Well, again, I think you're offering a wonderful service, and there's many other things that you offer as well. This particular class is financialflow.co, and each one of you offers a lot of different ways to even work with you individually at all sorts of ranges, not high rate, not low rate. I mean, all sorts of ranges that you do with people, which I think is great because you offer a wonderful service. And you offer this expertise that you have to really help people get unlocked and out of patterns that no longer serve them and just don't know how to do that. And so I thank you so much for your service and for what you do for women in general and for humanity to have that higher self value that reflects on their entire lives, because how you relate to money is how you relate to life, as you had just said. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank
Great
you so
information.
much.
Absolutely wonderful. All right. And
Beautiful.
again, if you loved this information, you want to share any of this with your friends, you can go to the Aware Show podcast and you can share it. It's on demand. You can share it from wherever you are, or just simply go to theawareshow.com to find out where else we broadcast. I'm Lisa Garr, and until next time, I invite you to stay aware.